All right. Well, hello. This is FanSpeak. My name is Chester C. Busby III, but my friends call me Bugbear, so please feel free to do the same.
All right.
And
Well,
tonight
this is FanSpeak.
we are going to.
My friends call me Bugbear, so please feel free.
Sorry about that. We are going to be talking about various subjects. One of the main subjects we're going to talk about tonight is what is ComicsGate doing wrong? And we're also going to talk a little bit about what it's doing right as well. Tonight I have with me a bunch of guests, and these guests are all fans, which is the point of this channel. We want to have a place where the fans of ComicsGate community and comics in general can come together and talk about the things they love and what they want to do, and also talk about the pros that we are all following and involved with. So let me introduce our guests we have with us. We have in the moderating, we have Beowulf.
How's it going?
And we have Mr. DeWolf with us.
Yeah, good evening.
We have Denali.
How you doing? Hey, aloha.
We have Humphrey Bear.
Hello, how are you?
We have Booster with us.
Hey, lads, how we doing?
We have the amazing Pope Fire.
But you needed a token female, so.
This is true. All right, well, let's go ahead and get right into it. The first thing I want to know from all the guests is what got them into ComicsGate, and I guess I'll go first. And the thing that got me in was really simple. Many months ago, last year, I guess, I was watching, Ethan Van Sciver on just doing his art videos, and Jim Lee, but I also watched Captain Cummings. And of course, Captain was getting more and more frustrated, as we all were, with the quality of art and writing and the nonsense going on in Marvel, particularly. And it was Captain Cummings that directed me to Diversity in Comics, Richard Meyer. And when Richard decided to put out his book Jawbreakers, we were all excited. I backed it. Many people backed it, and then Mark Waid and his goons decided to fall on Antarctic Press and kill that publishing chance. This made me extremely angry. It's weird. The internet doesn't make me mad. It was like the first time that I really was angry, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to be involved, and I think that's where this community is actually coming from. People saw that event and other things, and it's enough. So we want to do something. I want to do something. I want to help in any way I can. And I've been doing everything I can to be helpful. And I'm hoping that this channel can add to that and, continue helping the community any way I can. That's what brought me to ComicsGate. And I'm very happy to be here. The greatest thing I like about it is that, all these comics that are coming out, they're not political. They're just fun, old-fashioned comics, which is what we've been asking for. So that's what brought me here. Denali, why don't you tell us, why are you at ComicsGate?
Well, honestly, I kind of left comics around 2009, 2010 because all the comics that were coming afterwards weren't any good. They weren't for me, basically. And I kind of came around to ComicsGate because of The Last Jedi. How horrible that movie was. A lot of people might agree or disagree. I'm in the camp that it was pretty horrible, and it kind of led me to Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, which led me to Ethan Van Sciver and his channel. And it kind of led me to World Class Bullshitters. Unfortunately, that's the name of that channel, so excuse me for that language.
Don't worry about
it. And it kind of brought me closer to the creators and artists behind the comics, kind of reinvigorated my love and passion to the comic because I am interacting directly with the creators, unlike before where the creators were just a name on the page of the comic book. So, and part of the ComicsGate is, we as a consumer have a say in what we want in our comics. Unlike the big to where they're saying they got to do what they got to do as a business, and but with ComicsGate, we're more in control of what products we want coming out, and it's kind of it's kind of amazing to think about it, and it's kind of sad at the same time, but it's kind of amazing at the same thing that we have people listening to us, about what we want. So that's my spiel with how I got into ComicsGate. Just one rabbit hole going there.
Oh, that's great. I think everyone's got to have a slightly different story, and I completely agree. Last Jedi, my wife is the biggest Star Wars fan in this house, and she was not happy. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Denali. Let's see, who wants to go next? Humphrey, why don't you tell us what brought you to ComicsGate?
Well, I saw the videos from Geeks and Gamers, and I was watching the Star Wars videos, and I saw one where Jeremy did a video with Ethan. I think they went to Toys R Us before they closed. And then I started watching his drawing videos, and then he started talking about Star Wars and ComicsGate. And then I saw Mike Miller's videos, and I started watching more and more of the comic book artist videos, and I started to learn more about ComicsGate and this, and then I draw a little bit, so I wanted to draw again, and then I started to watch more of the videos and learn more about ComicsGate.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know you drew, Humphrey. I saw you put a little thing on for the FanSpeak. I thought that was great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you'll have to send that to me. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. All right, so who wants to go next here? Why don't you go ahead, Popeye?
I got into ComicsGate DNC was what brought me into it, but I had been reading New 52 was really what started my disdain for comics, and then the solo series Starfire comic was what really just made me drop comics altogether. I've never read a comic that was that boring, and I was so disappointed because she finally gets her solo series, and instead of doing something interesting, instead of going into space, she stays in a city and does absolutely nothing and has no interest in helping people. And it had some of the worst cover arts I've ever seen. And I thought I was alone there. I was like, okay, so I must be the only person that's not liking the direction of comics. And then I stumble upon the DNC videos, and I was like, okay, so I'm not alone. So that's kind of how I got into ComicsGate. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with that. It's the art quality is way down, the writing is way down, but it's also they're not superhero comics, right? I mean, they don't do super heroic stuff most of the time. They just sit around and eat food. It's weird.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good comic, so.
Yeah. Now, of course, you are a major Starfire fan. Maybe I guess the internet's #1 Starfire fan.
Oh, actually, yes, I was crowned the internet's #1 Starfire fan.
You were. I didn't know that. That's official. All right. There you go. All right. Thanks a lot. Let's see. Let's move on to Booster. What brought you to ComicsGate, sir?
All right, well, I've been, an anti-SJW for a while. I've been watching channels like Saigon of a Card for the last few years. And I've always loved comics. And DNC just kind of showed up on my recommendations one day about a good year or so ago. I think I was around when he had about 20,000 subscribers. And I just kind of remember when Marvel launched their all new, all different, I was thinking things were just getting weird, they're just replacing all these natural male characters with female characters, like very masculine characters like Wolverine just turn into a female for no reason. And I was just like, I just wanted to know what DNC had to say, and even though his videos are poorly edited and he just kind of rambles, I think he makes really good points, and he's got a natural charm to him. So I just kind of stuck around with him, and ComicsGate just happened around him.
All right, I certainly agree with those kind of sentiments. The Wolverine thing, I think, was a little less bothersome to me because I mean, when did X-23 come into the picture?
That's around like 2003.
I think she came in through an animated show.
Did she? Well,
No.
Ethan says he created it.
No.
Well,
he created X32, and they switched her around to X23. But she came in the comics, I believe, around 2000, early 2000s, and then it was a big push. She came in the comics, and then they had the animated show around the same time, so they were making that big push or whatever. I think with X-Men Evolution was the cartoon, if I recall correctly.
I remember that a little bit. Yeah.
X-Men Evolution was where she first appeared. That was a good, I think, year before her comic appearance.
See, now
you could be right. I remember they were about the same time, so you could be perfectly right on that.
Well, the thing I think it's interesting about the X-23 character. What's her name? Lara.
Correct.
The thing I think is interesting about that is when she came out, no one cared. Oh, okay, that's something different. They cloned Wolverine. All right, they explained it. She was a cool little addition to and kind of making more to the Wolverine family. And it was no big deal, right? But now, because of all this nonsense that's being piled on us from every direction, not just comic books, we're very sensitive to it.
I think the reason why a lot of people didn't really care why Laura came in or didn't have an opposition is because she wasn't supplanting Wolverine. She was adding to the mythos. Unlike the current views, the current themes that the Marvel are doing, they're supplanting the current established character to say, hey, these characters are no longer whatever they were. Now these characters that, maybe they used to have a past, now are these characters just because, whatever kind of deal. And I think that's what most people are striking. It's like, you're just doing it not for really good story reasons, but because, it's diversity.
Yeah, no, that's the key. That's the important point. And of course, now they have basically tried to supplant him with her. And what's this thing? Honey Badger? I think there's a character called Honey Badger that's a clone of the clone or something like that.
Wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, there is one, and it's in that all-female thing. Yeah. But anyway, all right. Let's see here, Mr. DeWolf. Why don't you tell us what brought you to ComicsGate?
And I went comics early teens and into young adulthood. So that would be the 80s to the 90s. And I have a big stack of Quasars and some Spider-Man and some Avengers, West Coast Avengers, those West Coast Avengers, not the current West Coast Avengers. Big difference. And had types with Hawkeye, Mockingjay are in there. And so after the 2000s rolled around and I was in the military, so I didn't have the availability so much, and I was no longer subscribed to them. And then I looked at comics again, and I started buying other comics besides that. I couldn't. It was hard to start getting into a comic book character because one storyline into another, breaking them apart. And where did I start with another character? Because the ones that I was following, their storylines either ended, the comic book ended, and things like that. So no big deal. I'll go off and game and stuff, and I'll hit the comic book shop occasionally and buy one here and there. But I wasn't buying then for about 20 years. And the last 5 of that, I was looking in comic shops deliberately because I have a son. And hey, he needs to read comics and get him into this and get something that he can be interested in and read more. You know, having kids read is a good deal. I couldn't find anything. I was looking at the artwork was bad in various ones. Some of the artwork was good, but then when the artwork was good, I'd flip through them and the story didn't seem to work right. And that's the great thing about the comic shop. And I'm sure at some point we'll be getting into that, the local comic shop, where you can actually flip through the comics. You know, at ComicsGate currently with the Indiegogos, we don't have that ability, except for the fact of when they may put up, the creator puts up, you know, about 5 pages, and we get to read them. That is just like being able to walk into the comic shop, flip through, look at the art, look to see how the story is developing. That's why I backed some of these guys. And so I would put them back and I would go about my business for the past, you know, so many years. Like I say, 20 years not buying a comic. So I'm the new guy that's almost coming back in. I'm almost no longer in the market, where the comic book industry thought that you're taking money away from one industry and there's only a pie that's only so big. You know, guess what? You're not just getting a piece of the pie nowadays. With the way things are going, there's more pie being made. There's more consumers. We are out here. We want to buy comics. We've been looking at comics though, and we don't want to buy them. And so when I saw other things happening, you know, in the culture that was changing, that starts building up the concept to Star Wars. And once again, Star Wars Last Jedi, Ethan Van Sciver, we can lay a lot of blame on him. And, you know, in all joking, we should lay some blame. So then what happened, of course, I was able to meet, so to speak, the ComicsGate individuals through the chain over into the Indiegogo, meet all the other YouTubers. You know, Mitch and Mike started coming on board, and I actually saw what was happening with the differences in comics, and decided, hey, I like some of these others. You know, we all have our favorite artist at this point. I believe that's in ComicsGate.
Absolutely.
So that's what got me here, was the fact that I wanted to buy comics. I didn't want to buy the ones that were out there. And lo and behold, there's been a year's worth of movement, sort of like a phase 1, all kinds of different things happening behind the scenes, behind the closed doors. Then you have the reviewers that happened. Just in case, matter of fact, this is almost a quick recap. Just in case there's someone that doesn't know what ComicsGate is. Then you had the reviewers that were out there. I think they've been mentioned, Captain Cummings and Diversity in Comics. They were talking about them. They are the consumer, but they are the consumer that's been outspoken and that's been kind of pushing back and being very aware and becoming very popular about what's happening in comics. Now you've got us, and we're fans. I am not a robot. Now I could be, I guess, if I was a synth and I was reprogrammed and then I had my memory wiped so that I wouldn't remember anything, I guess I could be some sort of a bot. But
yeah, don't talk like that.
What's your serial number?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're real fans, and I'm saying this because of the other things that have happened out in the world at large against, you know, ComicsGate and the like. I am a real fan. I am a real person. All of us here are. We are international. We are diverse.
What would say you're a real person?
And so, right. And so that's a very important thing. And not only are we backing ComicsGate,
like the robot earlier, which you did.
I'm sorry, what was that?
James S is saying you sounded like a robot earlier. Your internet was popping in and out, but you're fine now.
Oh, I see. Okay. So yeah, that's the big thing there, and that I'm here because of wanting to have comics again. I love the heroes. I've always had my own hero that I liked. We all do, like I say, Quasar was my guy, and I can't find any other great superhero with great powers and terrible self-confidence that represented. And that sounds funny and odd, but that is his version of the Peter Parker that the common man can relate to. He has something that's not necessarily a strength. He has a hubris. And nowadays, if it wasn't bad artistry, bad story, or gore in a comic that I couldn't buy for my kid, I wasn't buying them.
Well,
and so that's why I'm here today, and that's why I'm supporting these guys. It looks like they're creating some good things, and it's also part of that richer, bigger, broader cultural movement that's happening that we know and love the term of SGWs that are out there. And we all need to come together and create a team comics instead of a ComicsGate.
That's true. I agree with that. We'll get into that later when it comes to the name. Yeah.
Over me. Sorry.
What on earth?
It was the Beatles. Come together.
Oh, nice.
Run.
Oh no, Denali's gonna be the singer. Okay.
Over me.
No butter songs here, please. No butter songs. I much prefer Strawberry Jam. If anyone wants to make a Strawberry Jam song, I'm all for that.
Hey, Derek's my man here. He says Mark Greenwald ruled. Yeah, I really love the writing he was able to come up with. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so Beowulf, why don't you tell us? Beowulf, of course, is over here handling the chats, and thank you very much, sir. He's doing a great job. So it looks like we have 15 watching, which is great. So Beowulf, why don't you go ahead and tell us what brought you to ComicsGate?
Yeah, well, it's a lot like everybody else's story. I grew up, reading comics and watching animation and loving superheroes, and then somewhere along the way, it just started to change. I started to notice, they were taking my favorite characters and swapping them out, and for no reason, not for story reason. It was an obviously like a political move, and it just pushed me away, and I left comics for a long time and pursued other hobbies and stuff. And I'm an aspiring writer. I want to write novels, but that's slow going and stuff. And somewhere along the line, I got in my mind, I was like, well, why don't I go back to comics and give that a shot? And so I started searching around on YouTube, just looking for artists and seeing what was happening at the moment. And that's how I came across Ethan's stream, and I was watching some of his early how to draw videos and stuff. And then one day people started talking about this thing called ComicsGate, and I was like, what's ComicsGate? I had no idea what it was. And this was around the time that Mike Miller came on and that controversy began.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get to that in a minute.
And so I was very quickly just going through anyone who was even remotely linked to ComicsGate, and just subscribing to their YouTube channels and trying to watch, go back and watch videos and learn about this thing. And I found that there was an entire movement of people who had seen the same things happening to their favorite characters and felt this same push from the far left and the politicizing of comic books and stories. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. There's other fans, and more importantly, there's other creators who want to just make fun comics again. And then of course I got introduced to the whole controversy of comics book and what we're labeled and all that stuff, and it wasn't gelling with what I was seeing in the community. I was seeing a bunch of fans from every country, every race, every religion, and we were all just loving each other and having a good time about comics. And then there was just this radical attacking of us and maligning of our character from outside. And I've always been a bit of a fighter, so I was like, right, I'm pitching my flag here at ComicsGate. And that's how I got into it.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it. Short and sweet.
Awesome.
I don't mind if they swap characters out, but my biggest problem was they completely ignored the diverse characters they had beforehand.
Exactly.
And then they completely retconned ones. Iceman was my favorite X-Men.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have cared if they made him like gay or bisexual, but I did at least like it to be a good story. Like that was my problem is they put the agenda before the book. They put they thought it would sell just because he was gay instead of, you know, him being a compelling character.
I think that's the main issue that fans have had with it. They have, like you said, they've ignored the diverse characters. I mean, growing up, I loved X-Men. I loved Bishop. I loved Storm. But all of a sudden, they weren't good enough, or they weren't mainstream enough, or popular enough, and so the radical left just got in their mind to say, well, we'll take characters instead of supporting the characters that we already have, or coming up with brand new characters and making them awesome. We'll take other characters that are already popular and we'll just swap them. And they didn't have good story reasons. It wasn't compelling. You could see that it had nothing to do with the character and character development. It was purely propaganda. It was purely this forced push, this perceived need for more diversity rather than growing the diversity that we already had. And yeah, that's where it just lost me. So
What about
I
North Star?
think it lost us all that way. Now, go ahead, Mr. DeWolf.
From North Star from Alpha Flight. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was a little controversy when I was a teen. The fact that he was gay, right?
Yeah, he's gay. Yeah.
Could bring this guy, give him his own comic, bring him out, you know, and just highlight him, and instead of, you know, just look at it, change somebody else or do something different,
Or just make something new.
Oh, with North Star, I remember a controversy, and I wasn't alive for this. I read this in a superhero book, but apparently they were going to kill him off, and apparently the writer on it said there's no. I'm going to use a more politer word. There's no gays in Marvel, and he was planning to give North Star like AIDS or something, and like kill him off.
Whoa.
So I know that was a big controversy, but I think we've came a long way, and the fact that a whole bunch of people were like, no, you can't do that, kind of shows that comics have always been very tolerant.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Stan Lee started out that way. I mean, if you go look at the release run of Marvel when it first came out, Stan was pushing diversity from the very beginning.
Right.
Yeah, but he looked at the current climate, and this is what Stan Lee is different from current writer. He looked at the current, and he said, "How do I make this current relevant and of good story?" That's the difference. That, you know, with the X-Men, he wanted to talk about civil rights, but he knew that it was a comic book, so he had to craft a good story with allegory about it. And that's the difference, that it's story based and it makes it more impactful compared to what's being given today. What I see today more likely is they're just doing a shortcut. Say, hey, you like Captain America? We'll make the Falcon, who has his own rich mythos, you know, his own legacies, and make him Captain America because he's Captain America's black friend. Kind of like that. I mean, it kind of makes sense in that way, but it's a shortcut. It's a lazy shortcut to show, you know, we're just here to pander to you guys to make a quick bucks, and those who falls for it, awesome. Here you go. If you don't, and those who are actually, you know, up with it, well, you're just you just don't like diversity. You're just racist, and you don't like people. You don't like different people and all that stuff.
It's complete nonsense. Yeah, I mean, because I remember reading, was it Jungle Comics or Jungle Heat? Jungle Comics from Stan Lee. And that's where we got Black Panther. I loved Black Panther when I was a little kid. And now we have Wakanda. You know, I mean, what happened? No comment to my Wakanda? All right, I was trying to...
Just took us off.
I'll make a note. I'll write that down.
Yeah.
It's Wakanda forever. So.
Yeah, it's Wakanda forever. Wakanda forever.
But you know what I'm saying. I mean, And I actually that movie was very blasé to me, but and I don't understand.
Here's my main. Sorry, here's my main problem with Black Panther. When the villain is more interesting than the hero, to the point that the audience think that the main hero of the story was the villain, and then the main actor says, his character is unlikable, and he needed Killmonger to make him likable. When I was like, I liked him in Civil War. Why didn't I need to have a Black Panther to make him likable? About that.
Well,
So,
the movie did have war rhinos, though. That's a plus.
Hey, Rhino, the unicorns. They're unicorn by. That's what Mike Miller says. They're unicorns.
Sorry, I apologize to Mike Miller. Yes, the unicorns were awesome in the movie. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
there you go.
I found Black Panther perfectly serviceable. I just didn't think it was worth the hype and money it got. Like, what is it, a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes? It's ridiculous.
Well,
it was good. I just didn't think it was amazing.
I thought it was too long. I love the movie. It's actually one of the only Marvel movies I have on DVD. But I thought it was like way too long.
I also have the movie, so I mean, I enjoyed it, and I think for people who, don't, I'm not sure how to say it. There's some cultural zeitgeist that happened, where a lot of people felt that this was their movie because of the marketing representation, and that's what happened. Not forgetting that, there was Blade with Wesley Snipes, or The Color Purple, or other movie with Sidney Porters and other fantastic black actors as well. But because most people don't recognize that, or they're not as prevalent, they forget in history. When they see something like that, they're like, oh, that's amazing. So that's what I think happened. I mean, I still enjoy the movie, I still liked Michael B. Jordan's performance as Killmonger. There's some things, they could have fixed in the edit a bit, but overall, it's like you guys said, servable.
Well, to be honest with you, I think we could, and maybe we will in the future, take any Marvel movie and we can have quite a long conversation about it. And maybe we should do that. But I do think we should be moving on to the main topic of the night. Now, what we're going to be talking about here is, what is ComicsGate doing wrong? And, like I said, and we'll talk about this later, but for the most part, I think ComicsGate is doing most everything right. I'm very happy with it. I'm excited to be part of it. Just a quick mention, we'll talk about it more later, I'm sure, but I saw that Alterna Comics stream the other day, and if any of you listening have not seen that, go check that out. That was a wonderful moment, and if you ever want to know why you're in ComicsGate, go watch that.
It was game changing.
Tell you, it was game changing. It was a wonderful moment. It was an outpouring of love, and for all the people that disparage us and call all kind of names to us when they haven't even bothered to listen or talk to us at all, go watch that, and you'll know what ComicsGate is. But we'll talk about that more later. What I want to talk about is some of the problems. So I want to break this into two parts. And the first part, what we'll do is let's talk about some of the controversies that we've had. I think there have been three. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we had the whole debacle with the transcript and Doug Ernst and Tim Lim. Then we had the introduction of Mike S. Miller and some other pros, which I thought was weird because, I understand people have been fighting this ComicsGate against the SJW Marvel for a long time, but isn't that what you want, to have the pros come in? And then the third controversy, of course, is the most recent one, and that is the Vox Dei issue. So, why don't we just go ahead and get into that? Let's start with the first one, with Tim Lim, Doug Ernst, and Captain Cummins.
I didn't see that one, so I'm gonna make sure you guys get lots of good
All
room.
So from
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, baby.
Booster.
Go ahead.
Okay. So to bring put a little bit of context of what happened with that controversy with Doug Ernst and Tim Lim at that time was EVS during one of his live stream while he was drawing or doing something distracting. He made a comment when they were asking about, should comics do continue on with parody things like Trump's Space Force. And he kind of said, I don't believe that that's going to be in the future. It's not sustainable. Not knowing who's on the book and everything like that. And he was just, giving his honest opinion about it. The matter that he says it, and he admits it, he kind of sounded like he was talking down about it when he was just giving the opinion. And people can go back and look at it themselves because it's on one of his a couple months back live streams. Kind of upset the Trump Space Force team, and it upset Captain Cummings, which caused the first online feud between the ComicsGator. And the first part was him talking with Doug, and he's asking, okay, what did I do wrong? And he's like saying, you said that people shouldn't buy Trump Force. And he's like saying, no, I didn't. I just said it wasn't sustainable. But, after talking a while, it's like maybe, the way I said it could have potentially hurt causes and all that stuff. Then then the later stream, which had Tim Lim, they were talking back and forth, and they were trying to get Captain Cumming to get on, but Captain Cumming, it's a very forceful personality, so he didn't join. And during it, I think they were kind of laughing and everything. And Tim said, "We have the transcript of you saying blah blah blah." And at the end, when they all made up, they said, "Tim, okay, I'll eat the transcripts and all that stuff." After I don't remember exactly what it was. So people were still, I guess, annoyed with Tim Lin at that time, but I don't know why. I think they patched that out.
Well, there is actually one little point you're leaving out of that might be important. When Ethan said, he did say what he said, and like you said, he was drawing, just kind of looking at the chats. He wasn't really focusing on it. It was an offhand comment. But what he did say is, he said, I talked to them guys about that, and they took that he had spoken to Tim Lim and Doug Ernst, which he had not. He was talking about Richard.
Yeah.
And they took that wrong, and it all worked out. You're right. But I have a feeling that a lot of us still have a little bit of negativity toward Tim Lim and Doug Ernst, simply because it was a very pedantic thing to do, and it was just unnecessary. Why didn't you deal with that in a private chat somewhere? I mean, why did you make that public? And they wanted to make it public. And I personally think this is coming directly from the point that these guys have been fighting this for a lot longer than the rest of us. And they felt intimidated. They felt like they were being pushed out. I think it's very similar to the Vox Dei situation, which we'll get into in a moment. But I think that's a big issue. And I'm kind of curious, have we forgiven Tim and Doug?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
At this point. And thank you, Chester, for adding that I didn't recall that. So thank you for adding that point about that. EVS mentioned that he talked to everybody else about it as well, because I totally blanked on that. So thank you. I'm calling you out on that as well.
No, see, my thing is with a lot of comic skaters, especially some of the more well-known ones, and we've seen this time and time again. A lot of them are so used to fighting SJWs that make it so easy to be right, that when somebody else comes along, they're so used to being right all the time that they can't stand it when they might be wrong. And I mean, we see this all the time. I mean, saw it with a few other ones that just recently happened. It's just, I don't know. I feel like if people stopped and kind of looked back and reflected on it, it'd be a little bit easier to handle situations.
Let me give the outside commentary on that. It sounds to me, because I didn't see that. It sounds to me that the issue that you guys were having was a lack of professionalism. And so in the chat, it said petty is the word that they would use. So when you guys have something going on, and when I say that, I mean ComicsGate creators, the pros, you guys need to act professionally. We expect it from you. You are professionals. It says that right there in the name. Pro means professional. So act professional. Don't fly off the handle. If somebody makes an offhand comment, it sounds to me like that's not sustainable. Is also a nice way of saying, well, it's a bad way of saying that it's a one shot. And one shots are all over comics. A Trump Space Force is a one shot. And we do that for fun. And it's not sustainable. You move on to something else. You guys do it all the time. So if everyone in that microcosm world, because you have your emotions are raw because you left one industry, people are kind of mad at others, that's going on. So anytime anything happens, here's my advice to the EBS mics out there: lean back in your chair, take a breath, and say, is this worth controversy, or is it something that actually has to be taken care of for the betterment of the community as a whole?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I think it's also another issue is that every time these little controversies come up, it just is cringy, right? I mean, we
Correct.
don't need this.
I mean, one of the reasons a lot of arguments on our side against the pros are, attack us, we tell them they're not professional, but then, we look at our art side and we have, these art professionals doing kind of the similar things. So we're like, well, you're not really the same, different from us because your sides are doing the same thing.
I think,
And it's kind of
part of the
cringy.
problem. I think part of the problem is that everyone's so used to having these fights against the SJWs that as soon as the smallest little controversy arises within the ranks, everyone starts turning on each other as if everyone else is an SJW. And like in Ethan's live streams, especially in the chat, you saw people just like hammering on Doug, calling him soy and an SJW and stuff. And sure, I agree that they were in the wrong, but just that readiness to just like lash back. I think we need to, both the community, but especially the creators, need to act more professional. They need to rein that in.
That is where the chat becomes Twitter. EWS has been saying the thing with Twitter is when you throw something out on Twitter and you just get away from it and just let it do its own thing. That's where the chat becomes Twitter. If you are in a situation like that and Doug is getting attacked by the chat, guess what? Let the chat go. Handle it amongst yourselves, like us, the panel here. We're going to disagree, but we already have a mutual respect for each other. And if anything flares up, I trust you guys are going to take that more professional route because we don't like the drama. We like excitement.
All right, guys, I'm going to head out. Thank you for all the Church of Pope Fire people that showed up. So, all right, see you guys. It was really nice to be on here.
Nice talking with you, Pope.
All right. Well, Booster, why don't you go ahead and give us your opinion on the matter?
Oh yeah, and what ComicsGate is doing wrong?
Oh, on the controversy here.
Oh, we're talking about controversy now. Sorry, I'm a little behind.
The one where Tim Lim and Doug Ernst came on with a transcript and all that kind of stuff.
To be honest, I totally missed that one. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, how about the other one when, I think it's related, when Mike and some of the other artists started coming on to ComicsGate, and we got the same people, Doug Ernst and them, were really pushing back. What do you think about that?
To be honest with you, I think that's all egotism, really unnecessary egotism that we don't need. I thought that the professionals coming forward like this was an incredible chance. I think it was amazing. Bolsters the ComicsGate in general.
I agree.
And more professionals that come in, the merrier, I say.
No, so do I. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're,
Sorry, I
Go
was going to
ahead.
say that part of the controversy that I caught, because I think I must have come in just after the live stream where EBS made the comments, because I missed that one. But then very shortly after, Mike Miller did the ComicsGate Alliance poster, and then there was that whole accusation of gatekeeping, and that was all tied in, wasn't it? Like that's the perception that I got. That was
that's where the gatekeeping conversation came in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the other problem we're going to get to later. But all right, well, let's go ahead and let's move on for a little bit before we move into the other one and talk about Vox Dei. Who wants to eat that one?
Okay, I think, this was, the more we talk about Vox Dei, the more that we put energy on him, the more we give him power, over whatever our passions, and we shouldn't allow that. We're for more, whatever may happen, we are the consumer. We have the power, and if you don't want to support, or you don't want to purchase anything that's against your purchase, don't purchase anything. You don't have to fight it out. You don't have to explain yourself why you don't want to support or support whatever. This is a consumer movement. You have to decide as individuals, exactly, what is your line that you don't, what is your values? Does the brand or company that, you're thinking of purchasing align with those values? And if it's not, then don't purchase it. And if it does, if you self-identify with those values, then go ahead. Because, as you can see on Indiegogo, there's people that has supported that sort of product. Me personally, it doesn't follow my beliefs. So, I'm not going to support him at all. And, that's my individual choice. And everybody's their own person with their own complex emotions. And, you got to do what you feel is right and best for you in your own situations.
I think I probably better encapsulate the question. I'm new at this, everyone. Sorry. I should probably put out exactly what is the Vox Dei controversy. Before I do that, we just had someone join us here. Why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're just
Hello.
fine.
Hi.
And what would you like us to call you?
You can just call me. I don't care. What do you want? What do you want to call me?
I don't know, Mr. Thundaro.
There you go.
We don't know.
Now, for those of you on and watching, Mr. Thundaro is the mighty wrench of Ethan Van Sciver. So do not anger him. He will throttle you.
That's correct.
The mighty wrench will come down on you.
Please don't.
Absolutely. Well, because I've been moderating for Mike for a while, and boy, does it get busy. We had a 4-hour stream the other day, and the whole time posting links and dealing with a couple of swarms of Vox Dei's people coming over. Oh my, I was exhausted. I can't even imagine what you have to deal with, Mr. Thundaro, over on Ethan's channel. My goodness.
It's usually pretty cool, actually. I was actually in he's already has his live chat up, like the chat room up before he starts streaming later. And I was in there and I was telling the guys in there, most of the time everybody in here seems to be adults and they all behave themselves. But occasionally you'll have somebody come in and say something about one of the guys' wives, and then they just get kicked out because I'm not.
Yeah, so you don't get any kind of like swarm of attacks and stuff like that?
Not usually. He also has the auto filter on, so usually the real bad stuff gets caught by that, and I just kick them out afterwards.
You know, that's what I meant. Same with Mike, but we've had with Mike several times just swarms of people. I mean, like, 5, 6, 7 people coming on and just swearing up a storm, saying racial things. It's just ridiculous, and I just thought that was normal.
It is for YouTube, but honestly, for whatever reason, Ethan has created a a community that just doesn't have that problem.
I think that's a big thing all across the board here. When you talk about the community and what we want out of comics, it's morals and values. And when you
Todd, let me Mr. DeWolf, let me jump in here real quick. Just Mr. Thundaro, do you have your YouTube channel on? You should mute that. You can watch it, but please mute it.
No, it's muted. Is it echoing?
Someone has it on.
Humphrey, maybe, Bear.
Yeah, you got to mute it. You got to listen through the Google Hangouts. Yeah, because I'm getting a TV sound here through the speakers. There you go. Thanks. Or I'm sorry, Mr. DeWolf. Go ahead.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it just comes down to the community. We want morals and values, the things that we want to see in our comics, and of course we don't mind things getting edgy. Of course, we get edgy. Matter of fact, you see the pros do that in the banter back and forth. They're like when Tony Stark in the movie is walking around Bruce Banner and poking him with the thing, trying to get him riled up a little bit. They do that to each other. It's part of camaraderie and everything, and we do that. But at the same time, everyone still has that level of respect. He never drives that thing directly into his back, and so you see that, and that's our community. Then there's of course the people coming in and attacking, and they learned over this time frame they've learned how things are, and that is another topic. And I'd love to go down to a little bit of that topic of the division of one group versus the other group and their ideologies. I'm gonna wait on that one though.
Well, I'm hoping we can come up with all kind of topics, because I'd like to do this every Friday night and talk about all manner of things. So we need to make a list, and down in the description below, I have written down and put my Facebook in there. And I want people in the comments as well to give us suggestions on things you'd like us to talk about. And also keep in mind, if you're listening, please go over to my Facebook and send me a direct message and let me know, because we'd love to have the fans on as a guest. That's what this channel is for. It's for the fans. So please do so, and we will be talking about things every Friday. So everyone's welcome. Now let me frame this Vox Dei thing real quick, and let's just have a small chat about it before we move on. The Vox Dei controversy, I think, for me, it sums up like this. Vox was, I've been watching Vox for a long time on Stefan Molyneux's channel, Free Domain Radio. Free plug for Stefan. Vox has some interesting things to say. He's a very intelligent man. As far as his extreme right views and those various things that can come in, I don't know much about that. And if he is some kind of supremacist, well, I certainly don't support that. But I never really heard him speak about these things. He talks about SJWs, maybe. But I don't know exactly how he came into it. But someone had challenged him, or someone had said something about the trouble in comics. And what he did was he said, well, fine, I'll make my own. And he did. He went and made one. Now, I've only read a couple of pages of it. It looks like the writing is okay. The art is not great, but I mean, that's all right. And he put out a comic long before any of the other ComicsGate people did.
That's commendable.
Yeah, and it is. And I thought it was really cool. And I was kind of surprised that he didn't become a permanent fixture of the community. Of course, knowing now what seems to be his ideology, maybe that's a good thing. But nevertheless, when he came out, I guess a few days ago or last week, when he basically tried to copyright ComicsGate, 100% SJW free, this sent the ComicsGate community off, and they started kind of attacking him like they did on the DC stream, and he came back really hard. I think it's and not that big a deal, to be honest with you. But it was the talk of the town here at ComicsGate for the past week. So that's the Vox Dei controversy. Does anyone have any opinions on that?
So Pixel Trader says in the chat, he says, my issue with the Vox situation was that he co-opted and tarnished the name of the movement, and that it gives the opposition more ammo to throw at us.
Right. You know, and I'm glad you picked that up, Beowulf, because part of FanSpeak is also the fans in the chat, and we're going to do our best to try to get to the chat. And you know, eventually, maybe there's some other great voices out there who are fans that also want voices, and we can bring those, you know, on to speak in time. But in lieu of that, you know, we really want to watch the chat and make sure we get these other voices, these silent voices out there. And that's a very, very true statement. The fact that he co-opted and tarnished the name of the movement. I'm not sure if he tarnished it specifically, or it's maybe his aura, but so I'm gonna leave that go, because that's a passive thing. But the co-opted part, definitely, when you come in jumping in, and when you see my voice, and when you see Chester, you know these guys, the pros know the guys. There's a community. Someone from outside the community came in and attempted to put reins around something that we all knew didn't even need reins. And furthermore, it also had something to it that we did not want, and that was that tagline, the 100% SW free. That was an aggressive stance. ComicsGate has been leading itself down a defensive role, and so that we're always good guys. When you're the one getting attacked, you always have that concept of outsiders, that the attackers are the bad guys in social situations, especially. They're the bullies. And so here we have this tagline that is aggressive, and it sounds wrong to point the finger, 100% SCW free. You don't want that. That's being blatantly, you know, McDonald's hamburgers are, you know, against vegetarians. You know, you don't do, all you want to do is say we have a great burger. And when he did that, and then he came in and then was upset, you don't get upset at your people. When someone has a problem, you use humility. You know, the pros like EVS, they use self-deprecation a lot. Someone makes fun of them, they go right along with it and make fun of themselves. Boom, and everybody laughs, and you move on without ever there being a problem. But when you stand up and try to fight back, which he did not use humility, there we go. That was his big mistake, and to recover from that is going to take a long time.
And kind of to add what you were saying, the main issue wasn't just that he co-opted, he took a choice from us to associate with him. He with him taking that label, he basically said, you have to come through me, you have to associate with me. If you use ComicsGate, you are associated with Vox Dei. And that's not what we wanted. The movement, like I was mentioning earlier, is consumers first, and the right of a consumer to choose what they want. And what we wanted was good comics, no political, and the right, to purchase whatever we want. And the fact that he co-opted and took that from us, that's the grievous part more than anything else, in my opinion.
So, we haven't heard from Humphrey Bear in quite a while. What do you got to say on any of these controversies that we're talking about, Humphrey?
Yeah, I didn't like what Vox Dei did. I just felt like he wanted to take over, and I just had a bad feeling about the way he was talking about things, and he was going about it all the wrong way.
Yeah, he does give off a kind of uncomfortable aura, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy we're dealing with who calls himself the Dark Lord and quotes Disturbed to his dissenters, What do you say to EBS? Open up your hate and let it flow into me. A Disturbed song.
Oh yeah.
This guy's a bloody joke. Come on, he
But-
didn't make it out of his teeth.
But he already told he's not part of ComicsGate because in his stream he says you ComicsGater. So he already put himself beyond us, saying that he's not even part of ComicsGate as well, in his own words. So it was a co-op for, whatever reasons he had in mind, whether it was financial, whether it was, whatever it was. The point was he was incorrect to do so without understanding what he was getting into. And the fact that he took those choices away from us, that's why we're angry. And the fact that his views are, for a majority of us, I can't, I couldn't even associate. I had to read it. I read it, and it was disgusting what I read. So, and by principle alone, I couldn't support that guy.
Yeah, I think of the chat here that this is a very interesting point by Paulus Mobus. Vox isn't really a comic book guy. Didn't he admit that this is just a cash grab? Screw him. Yeah, no, that is true. He's not a comic book guy. I did see in real time him making the decision to do the comic book when he was talking to Stefan Molyneux. So yeah, he's not a comic book guy. That's true.
See, I don't really know who Vox Dei is. I haven't listened to any of his stuff or read any of his blogs or whatever. I only know of him through ComicsGate and what people like Mike Miller and that have to say. As far as him tarnishing, ComicsGate, I think that's up to us. Like, if we're already getting called, far right and white supremacists and stuff, and if that's what he is, then by him trying to co-opt the name and us pushing back and saying no, get out of here. If anything, I think that can actually help us in the long run.
It would, but would you see a single one of these comic book journalist websites, like say Comic Book Resources or Polygon, would you see any of them reporting on the fact that we pushed against Vox Dei? These people are hacks, man.
Yeah,
No,
they're
not
not
at all.
going to. But I think maybe some people who are kind of still maybe in the middle a little bit, watching us push back, that could open their eyes and go, hey, wait a second, these guys and girls, they're not what the people say they are.
Yeah, I hope so.
I mean, I have to go with what Edwin's usually says. We have to be the leaders. We have to be the positive things to change the world. Be the positive difference in the world. And, we might not change everything, but we can change this little piece of it. And we have to keep showing it. This is just another thing. So what the Vox Dei matter is, we got to ignore him, and do our own stuff and be happy. That's my goal in life,
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. EVS just started his live, so we're going to lose a bunch of viewers, but
that's all right.
We are recording.
No problem.
Does Mr. Thundaro have anything to say on this matter?
Not much. The only thing I really have to say about Vox Dei is he's a piece of garbage. I've been in and around the movement that I was a part of, which used to be the old alt-right before it went full white nationalist. And he was always a piece of garbage then, and nobody really liked him. So I have very little respect for Vox Dei, and I'm very glad that he got his ass kicked.
That is weird, right? Because I remember the alt-right originally was just an alternate right conservative run. It had nothing to do with far right white supremacists. It was just a young, conservative movement. How did that get co-opted to this extreme supremacy thing?
I don't know. It was a lot of it was you had guys like Richard Spencer come in, and as he gained more prominence, more and more of that seemed to get collected around him. And then you also had Vox was always against that. I'm going to give him full credit. He was against going down that route because he knew that everybody would just start calling them Nazis even more, and I'll give him credit for that. But You had guys like him come in, co-opt it, and then a whole bunch of other guys around him. And then you had the things like Charlottesville happen, and all of the people who were my side of the alt-right, which we were just mostly just, shit posters and just right-leaning people. A lot of us are libertarians, actually. We didn't want anything to do with that because we knew what it would look like, and we were right. And after that, most of us split off, and it became full-on white power nonsense after that.
That's a shame, yeah.
So that's also a lesson for us fans that we have, as much when we get into these situations like Vox Day or anything, we have to be united and be, and it's going to be hard because we all have different opinions, different circumstances, but we have to be like, at least have a standard of agreement on like that. We're the Comic Alliance, we're Team Comics, and we have to have like kind of like a set of rules, kind of like how you were mentioning in our previous talk. I think it was either Todd or you, Chester, about the Confederate articles becoming the Constitution. We got to form that next phase and be, these are the standards of what we stand for. We're principled people, and our consumership is going to reflect that. And, and one of the thing is we'll make comics great. We're going to produce comics great, and we're not going to wait for anybody. If nobody's going to produce it, we're going to go ahead and produce it ourselves. We're not going to wait for pros to do it as well.
Yeah, that is a great thing about this community. You're seeing all kinds of people with talent and trying to come forward. I think it's inspired so many people to create things. That's a wonderful thing. Ethan has said this several times. There is so much talent in this community, and he is right. And I think that's one of the better things about it. Now, this is a conversation we could have for a long time, but we do need to move on to the next point. And the next point, I think, is actually the bigger point. And this is what I think is the real main problem in ComicsGate. Now, as far as controversies and stuff, I think we should do our best to keep them to a minimum. And please, I really implore the professionals, if you're having conversations with people, do it privately. Keep it amongst yourselves. We don't need it up in the community. Please, please listen to us and hear us. This is not just my voice or the people in my chat. I have been seeing this all across the community when these things come up. People are just saying, shut up. Go into a private conversation and deal with it yourselves and work it out. We don't want that. This is a place about good comics and having fun and I know it sounds cliche and corny, but a loving community. That's the point here, and there is a lot of that in this community. But the big point, I think, and the big issue we need to talk about is oversaturation. There's a lot of good books coming out. We've already seen many. I don't know, there's over 20, I think, so far. But coming out real soon, you have Art DeBear is coming out with his comic, Black and White. And you also have Ben Jones coming out with his Asgard. And both those look great, particularly Ben Jones. I mean, I've been watching his streams, and he is an amazing artist. And I'm really looking forward to that. But they're just dropping on top of us left and right. And I think most of the community, we just can't keep up with throwing this kind of money out, but we want to. We want to support this. We're 100% behind it. And we need to, what they need to do is they need to organize themselves. And I think the problem, this comes back to the point we just talked about with the controversies, is the whole gatekeeping issue. But the problem is we need a gatekeeper. We need someone that is going to, it could be someone that is independent. And I know that Denali had mentioned something yesterday that I thought I really want you to talk on here in a minute, please. But we need someone independent that can have a place where they can put all their information and they can organize themselves. Now, of course, we're not going to force them to do that, but it would be really useful if they would stagger their releases so that we, the community, can throw the money at it that we want to throw at it. We want to support everything. I know we do. I see it all the time on the streams. So, this is, I think, a major issue. So That's my opinion on it. So why don't you guys go ahead and tell us what you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you to a large point. I think we've got to be really careful. I can hear myself through some of the speakers. I think we've got to be really careful with the word gatekeeper, though, because it's a loaded word and it comes with a lot of negative connotations. I think just an organizer, just somebody who can help.
An administrator.
Yeah, an administrator, somebody who can help organize when who's going to launch and when. It's not about who's allowed to launch. It's just when are they going to launch? Because I know that there's been several books that I've already missed out on. I've backed 4 or 5. I'm not a rich man, and the shipping, like I live in Australia, the shipping alone is horrendous.
Murder.
It's killing me.
I mean, these are expensive books to say the least. I mean, the least of them are like about, for a physical copy, $10. But if you add like a $24 shipping, you're literally paying, like a 25 tier book already. So with less bells and whistle right there. Good idea. So I feel you guys paying right there.
A good word on that, Chester. Going back to where you started on here is cohesion. We have these great talented guys. They know each other. They back each other. They're in each other's corner, and then they turn around and go, "Whoa! But I'm not going to actually deal with you, and I'm not going to work with you so much." And we just want to be independent. And I understand that. The fans. I'm a fan. I'm way down here at the bottom. You're up there. You're in your ivory tower. You're making the comic, Mr. Pro Secret. And I think it's great and it looks wonderful. But you know what? Work together just a little bit more is kind of what we're asking here. And because, like they're saying, I got a budget. I've got I go to my job. I have my mortgage. I got my food, and then I got some luxury money, and I can do a lot of things with it. And what I want you to be able to do is to say, hey, here's a great comic, and maybe some genres. Like here's a horror, which I think there's a horror that we brought up before this tonight. We brought it before that we wanted to talk about. There's a horror that's out there. There's an action. There's a superhero, something. So you can stagger them out. You don't see summer movie where you've got 10 movies. When they see someone coming out with another movie coming out, they go ahead and rearrange those things and back up or move something a week or a month back because I want to get into brand. Cry. That's the one we talked about before. It looks amazing, and there's some advice I think that we as fans can even help market Cry with some ideas. But when you're not working together like that, it hurts us, it hurts you, and that's the big thing here. So I think some cohesion, work together, trust each other a little bit more, especially on this side of ComicsGate, at least to the point where you can create some schedule. If one person has to be a voice or the person with the pencil that jots down and creates a schedule, and then the next guy says, hey, I'm doing this. Well, some of you guys, and I understand this, have to eat, and some of you guys have jobs, and you're doing this on the side, and you're trying to get in. I would say have a little bit of respect for that. And if you've got a guy who's doing this, to pay his mortgage, give him a little extra leeway. Bump yours back, and if the next guy comes along, bump back again. Let us know about it. Drum up some excitement. Let us know it's coming, and give each other some room and our pocketbook some room. I got a little.
And I think the other side of that argument is that we have to grow the industry as well. We have to bring in more people in as well, because I mean this is part of the kind of growing and expanding. While that's a good idea, the other side of the argument is, well, we need more people to come in, we need more people to be exposed to this, meaning that these comics, when they're released out of Indiegogo or whatever, we need to show, okay, this is great. They need to be in newsstands, or they need to be in pharmacies. They need to be out there.
Yeah.
I think that's would probably have to be the next phase of comics.
Yeah, and I think all the Peter Samedi over at Alterna has made comments about him expanding into different areas like that. And actually, Mike Miller has made a lot of comments about wanting to do that. He's very he would agree with you 100%, Denali. He wants to see us expand maybe into board games, video game world, into different places where we can get more people involved in the community. That's a very good point. But now, Denali, you had made a point yesterday regarding someone who is in our chat, Pixel Trader.
Correct. So Pixel Trader, for those who don't know, has a website that he has automatically uploaded all the ComicsGate affiliates under we call IndieCron, which shows what's currently running, when it's going to end, and how much money it's raised. And I was saying, if we're going to do the scheduling, maybe they could put the scheduling there so they know what's coming up next. Tentatively, because a lot of people, and we can push that website out each time we say, hey, support this and go through IndieCon and look at all the other stuff. Kind of more exposure right there because, I see Sean on Twitter throwing out thousands of tweets about these individual things, and I'm thinking, hey, Sean, throw IndieCon in there with those links so they can look at the other stuff as well. Because, they might be interested in one thing, but they didn't know, oh, hey, there's a horror book, like something real. Or, hey, there's that 90 action Jawbreakers with a giant gorillas going there, So that's one of my thoughts process, because we have the resources there, we can implement it more effectively, and that's more coordination towards us, and the creators can keep their own independent companies or studios, but they can work together as a networking alliance. That's why I like the hashtag Comic Alliance, Yeah.
Well, that is a subject we haven't really mentioned much tonight, and I think we'll do that more on the positive side in a minute. But I'm just curious, maybe next week we could have Pixel Trader on and can come on and talk to us about what he's doing and what he thinks about that. But I really I'd imagine the pros do have their own private areas where they speak, but they just need to organize themselves better. Does anyone, Humphrey or Booster or Mr. Thundar, you guys have any ideas on this this glut that we're trying to deal with?
Not particularly, to be honest. I'm kind of half here and half not because I got his chat open, just watching.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. How about Booster? You got any opinions on this?
What glut was that? I'm sorry.
Well, we're talking about where there's so many comics from ComicsGate or Comics Alliance books dropping on us all the time. It's just too much in a row. We need ComicsGate needs to do something to spread these Indiegogos out so that we can all support them more easily.
It's a good idea to spread them out, but at the same time, I think that some of these books would have barely made $1 if it wasn't for the hype behind them, and there's a lot of hype behind ComicsGate right now. So I think that's been a real driving force to the success of a lot of these books. But Lord knows, I've only been able to back Jawbreakers so far because I have limited funds, and we have 20 bloody books at the moment. It's ridiculous.
Right, and that's kind of what we're talking about here, because you've got limited funds, and a key point that goes along with that is longevity. When you schedule something out further, that makes that longevity. One of the fingers that's getting pointed at ComicsGate is it's either flash in the pan, it's not going to last, and it's a cash grab, et cetera, et cetera. None of those things matter if you've got longevity. And when you say, hey, we've got comics scheduled to go up on Indiegogo for the next 6 months, because right now we've gone 3 months. Oh, 3 months, by the way. And what are we at? 1.6 million.
1.8.
Jerry, let's run the tab, Jerry. It's nice lady, 1.8. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've got 1.8 million out there in funds going into this, and are we going at 3 to 4 months? When you look at the long term over a year, if you just multiply that, you're getting closer to 6, 7. You add on a couple of more, you could go. You're talking 10 million over a year. That's mighty, And to say, hey, that we have longevity, because none of these guys want to just have flash in the pan. They all want long term. We'll start thinking long term and start working that together.
I'm sure that if a lot of these books stay in the in-demand store, the funds will keep popping in, man. And
you can keep the hype going. You can still keep the hype going. Just the next month, we have more hype. Hey, we have something cool coming out. It's marketing. And if there's one thing EVS I think can do, and that's the marketing.
Yeah, and as soon as we get these books in our hands, man, I'm sure the hype will go right back up again.
Next year is going to be amazing.
It'll be insane for ComicsGate, surely. And let's just hope these books are as good as they look. And I reckon we can just keep this going for a wee while.
Or we're going to rag on them. Oh, we're going to rag on them hard. I know.
What do you think EVS hired David Sim? He's like, oh, crap. I know they're going to rag on me hard. I need to get a good dialogue.
That is a good point, guys. We actually don't have any books in our hands yet. That is true. That is true.
Ironsights should be coming very soon. Something I unfortunately could not back. But
now it's interesting. Ironsights is going to get to us before Jawbreakers, because that was after. Right. But that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, Richard said that he had Ironsight all completed before Jawbreakers done. So all he needed was just the funds to print it out. And once he got the money, he was looking for the right printers that he posted up in the private chat for EVS and the other creators and the other ComicsGate creators, about what he's found. So they are kind of talking about it among themselves. Battles
of time and printing and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I know that Richards did a couple of things saying, he wants to print in America, but if he isn't able to, he would print, in China because it's cheaper like that on the bulk. But I think he was able to find somebody, to do that. And that's the other thing is, it's, I think ComicsGate is going to allow for people, instead of trying to make their way through Marvel and DC to make their big breaks, or Dark Horse and everything. This is like a first step to say, hey, here's the creators. You know them face to face. You'll hear them talk to you, and you'll decide as a consumer whether you say, hey, whatever this guy is saying, I want to give him a chance and check him out. And that's kind of different from, seeing the marketing, seeing the people, other people telling me this is a good product. You're able to judge for yourself, whether this is a product that you really want to support or not.
How many of these books you think we're going to end up seeing on Black Diamond distribution?
I don't know, because the way I get the sense, they really don't want to do Black Diamond. I think they probably want to do maybe independently, or form a publishing that does it for them or something like that.
It's really smart because putting these books in the hands of Black Diamond puts them under the gun of the other side. I'll just say, when that happens, then Black Diamond is on shaky ground. It's really professional courtesy, in my opinion, to not go to Black Diamond and just say, hey, we can print them over here. If they're printers. Matter of fact, when printers look at the money, we're not just talking $1 million and such that goes to a comic creator. He's got to print the book. So a bunch of that money goes to some other person if they hire them for color, someone else to print, someone else to put them. This is creating an entire miniature industry, and of course we all have Trump for that to think. But the economy is booming. ComicsGate raises the economy. But really, when you think of that, I think more and more people are going to see, hey, this is actually a small little industry starting up, and we have the ability to keep it going and get in on it.
What do you think about maybe trying to? Now, this is something that the pros would have to make a decision on, but just as a hypothetical conversation between us, what do you think about funneling ComicsGate, maybe even some of the less known creators through Alterna?
Oh yeah,
that's a great idea, but it ultimately falls with Peter and his group to decide whether to do that or not.
Of course,
I would
yeah.
love if Peter got on board with us, man, but I don't think they would.
Yeah.
Old Peter's gotten harassed enough as it is, and that stuff has been heartbreaking.
Yeah,
It is heartbreaking. Yeah, that is.
But if he gets the art and they can make good comic, more good comics, and they can make them newsprint, then what? I mean, you don't have to. If you're some of these other smaller artists, some of these young artists, some of these guys that say, hey, EBS, what do I do? Gee, whiz a Gallagher and get involved in this. If he says, hey, go over to Alterna, then they don't have something that says, hello, my name is ComicsGate on their shirt. They just can go in. Alterna can say, hey, this is what I expect, and you want to put out a good product and run with it. I think that that's a possibility.
I think from Peter's point of view, he made it very clear in that stream that he'd be more happy having the term Team Comics, which I agree, which once again we haven't really talked about, but I think if you put the Team Comics tag on it, I think he'd be happy to be involved with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think I heard EBS mention Alterna in a stream that I was listening to last night, and I think Ethan himself would be reluctant because he brought up the pricing of the comics, and he asked the question kind of to himself, like what profit margin is there for the creator? Because it's amazing how cheap Peter's putting out these comics, but nobody actually knows the how that pie is cut behind the scenes. Like what are the artists getting? What are the writers getting? What's Peter getting?
That's true. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I get it. I was just trying to support Alterna, I guess, but maybe I'm also just thinking with Denali said about Pixel Trader, and I also know Mike has one of his friends does the Freedom Forge. I just trying to find a place we can organize ourselves through, because the topic we're dealing with here is there's just too many books dropping for everyone to back everything. And I understand your comment, Booster, where you basically saying hit it while it's hot. I get it.
And Chester, I know that a lot of the creators, and I know EBS has been more vocal than most of the other creators, but they've been saying, form a company, form a label. He's been really hesitant about that because he sees what happened to Image, and I think Image is deeply on everybody's mind. But the fans, he has been listening to the fans saying, this is a problem that needs to be addressed, because if you guys want to maintain this kind of deal, this infrastructure has to be addressed. And soon, because this is going to hamper growth, and it's going to hamper, the excitement, because this is kind of like the California gold rush. Somebody hit gold, and that was Richard Myers with his Jawbreakers, and EBS hit the vein with
Cyberfrog,
Blood Honey, and then you have Mitch with Red Roosters, and you kind of can see, how we poured a lot of our money because we weren't expecting all these other comics to show up, and now that they're showing up, we're like, I'm sorry, guys, we spent most of our funds on these other comics.
There's a lot of prospectors now that are looking to get in on the market.
Yeah.
And I really don't think we're saying anything that the pros don't already know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're well aware of the situation, but it's just because I know personally that I want to back every single one. I want to, because I want this to be successful. Because in my opinion, the the comic books world, as far as a printed comic book, is dying, and that is the saddest thing to me. This is one of the original American creations, and to allow that
And
to die would I just think be tragic. Now I understand on the internet with these web comics, those are booming and people love them, and Mike Miller has talked about trying to expand it, and I think it's a smart idea, but. I want to support everything. I want to give my money to it. It's just
and
we
that
need a little bit more balance.
yeah. And I think with ComicsGate, we're giving consumers which is us, the fans, another choice, but we're also giving a wake up call to DC and Marvel, Dark Horse, IDW, saying, hey, these comics are not dying. We actually, what they lost, about 6%, we technically gain over here. So, and this is actually going to invigorate, because there's no longer complacency, that's been kind of struck with the comic industry for a couple decades now.
I think you're right. It is going to start an invigoration. And here's something that I think it's the dove in the room that we haven't noticed. I guess I just noticed it. It's the fact that why do you even need this printers? Why do you need this Alternas? And I'm going to help you out here with my idea, and that is that these comics are costing us $25, $30, if we double back them, $50. And what we really need is the ability to look at what's on the shelf now, 5 and 7. I could back a whole lot more and shred myself out to other creators if they were only 5 and 7. But you can't really do a 5 and 7 Indiegogo that I know of. It's better to do a larger book, that's 48 and 60 pages. So you need that printer, that person that can then fire out. I've been working for 1 month here, boom, I've been working, and then another month, basically like the old comic industry used to do. So that's the thing. If we can get them for a little bit cheaper, I think Brand has his out for 15, but if you can get them cheaper, that's another thing, and that's where that extra media type helps us out. Indiegogo is great, and then when we love things like annuals or biannuals, but we also need something that's continuing. And the Walmart market that you mentioned earlier, Denali, that's one of those other markets that you're able to get the cheap and quick things in there for the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, and what I was thinking is, which comes with another trust issue, is having them all go to like one printer. They decide to say, this is the printer that's best for our comics. Going not on Indiegogo, but mass distributing outside the thing, where they can all pitch in and say, hey, if you give us a discount, we are going to give you a lot of work, printing this out kind of deal.
Yeah,
because
Dinah has a great point in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that.
Go ahead. I can't see the chat, unfortunately.
You want to hit that, Chester?
Yeah. Dinah Israel has said, I am trying to promote comic books and other creative products to the normal people out there, since it's a cultural revolution that we are pushing. We need to show others how we fight back with style. And yes, that is what's happening.
Yeah.
So the best way to start with, my suggestion is go to your local comic book artist, not artist, but your local comic book shop, talk with the owners, be invested with them, see what they say about what's going on if you haven't already. Pick up some comic books, whatever you prefer, alternative or the back issues, whatever you like to do, and kind of gauge what they say about it. And look at your local artists that are around, and say, hey, what are you doing to support? And and call them up and say, hey, are you doing anything? You know, we have to get to that point to be aggressive and say, hey, this is what's going on. How about checking this out over here in Indiegogo and look at what's happening in this scene, and kind of getting the talent to be more aware. And when these books come out, you're going to have to show them and say, hey, show them off, show those books off and say, you know, these are books for everybody. Comics are for everybody. You know, young, baby, middle age, you know, kids and teenagers.
Yep.
Yeah, well, you know, the people on this other side keep saying that too, but that's not true. It's not. It's definitely not. There's a comment in here from Pixel Trader I want to read.
Sure.
Pixel says that they need a unified shipping and distribution center that can combine books and backers' perks into single shipping. I think that's a very good idea. And I also was, by reading that, some idea came into my mind. I was kind of wondering if maybe some of the smaller ComicsGate creators might not want to do Indiegogos together. Whereas if we're spending $25-$30, maybe we get 3 or 4 books instead of just one. I mean, I don't know if that would make sense, but you know, sharing an Indiegogo, you know.
You know, that might be a thought, but you have to give a lot of trust in who's going to what account, because when Indiegogo takes it, that money goes to whoever has that campaign open. So that's a trust issue right there.
You're also going to have the whole, like, how do we cut the pie? Because you know, it could be argued that more people would be buying the bundle for, say, Cyberfrog than Red Rooster, and more for Red Rooster than, say, Lone Star. And like, how do you know? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I just I would I guess I'm not talking about the big guys. I'm talking about the smaller guys. There's a lot of people who want to put out books, and I think it's wonderful, and I want to support them. But maybe it would be better if they'd come together. And of course, the way you share it is equally. It doesn't matter if you're there for this one or that one. It's a unified Indiegogo, so it's equal.
You know what? Some of the other what Marvel does is they'll put one page with a couple of panels that builds a quick little story into a different comic. And so that means that Mitch is going to have to be able to, you know, be humble enough and say, you know, okay, graveyard shift guy, you know, you can take a couple of your
John Mallon, yeah.
You're right. One page, and that one page goes in the back. You put a special border around it. You glam it up, and you say, you know, also, you know, available, you know, and that gives you a way to market within the other comic guys again.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Now, the Booster was trying to say something earlier. You want to go ahead and say that, Booster?
No, I wasn't trying to say anything. I was just agreeing with people.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I like it when people agree with me. But yeah, I think these are all great ideas, and the general consensus is they need to just organize themselves a little bit better. You know, whether they do distribution together or not, I think there's a lot of ideas that they should be thinking about. Another thing that just popped into my head, and you guys tell me what you think about this. You know, I'm a musician. I've been playing music since I was a teenager. Professionally, and I've been on many stages. And unfortunately, I was never in a mainline band. I was always in the opening act. I've opened for all manner of big bands in the 80s and 90s, but I was always in the opening act band. But that's the kind of point I'm trying to make, the opening act. Right. Maybe we could have some of these big guys have a smaller guy with them on an Indiegogo. And of course, they're going to get less money, but that might be a way to go too.
Well, for that idea, just to expand on it, Chester, is, you know how John Malin having Nerd Wonder do an ash can? Maybe they could do the same thing. Instead of, you know, having an ash can of Cyberfrog, they could do an ash can of the next project, or the project that the small guy's doing it.
That's a really good idea, actually.
And then you get a 16 issue or a 16 page, you know, preview of, hey, check this out, coming soon to you, you know, and that drums up excitement and all that stuff.
Well, let me be the foil, and from the pros perspective, 16 pages is a lot of work still to put out, and especially if someone else has to do it. If you want your product to be marketed, you do the work. If you want any product to be out there, you have to create the prototype. You have to go to an investor. You have to show the investor. You have to put your work into your own product first and foremost before anyone else is going to. So,
yeah, I think what he was saying, DeWolf, is that maybe you could do an ashcan that's promoting the next Indiegogo. Am I wrong, Denali?
Yeah. So here's what I'm saying: the person who's promoting or doing the ashcan does the ashcan, you know, and they draw the ashcan and they attached it in with, you know, whoever's the big liner, kind of like the opening acts. Like here's the main book, and then here's the opening act, which is the ashcan, which just gives you a preview, you know, of that artist's next project to kind of drum up big, and they're more welcome to do so. And that's like, hey, here's your end. You do well, and you have that excitement going on. Boom, there you go. You know, kind of deal.
You know, I just noticed that Humphrey had put something in the chat that actually would be a very good point to make here live. So Humphrey, I've heard you scurrying around in the back, which, you know, is fine. That's what bears do. But why don't you go ahead and say that?
Yeah, I was thinking if they could make an ashcan or a small comic book, like promoting a few artists, you know, show a few pages from each artist, and get a little bit of the story, and said this is what we want to do, and we want to do this in the future, like an Indiegogo, but you know, you're getting like a preview in one book.
Yeah, so I think what Humphrey's trying to say is having many artists in one ashcan, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So kind of like a digest where you're getting like, so they can actually do that, like tying it all together, having like a Indiegogo campaign where they're doing this maybe 60-page digest that has like 4 or 5, you know, I don't know, 10 to 15 pages preview stories or one shot offs of that artist's story, you know.
Smorgasbord.
Yeah, and then you can kind of you can do like at, you know, the more it raises, the more pages you can add on to it, and the more people can join in or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, add the fan arts and kind of do. Remember how the Wizard of the Coast used to do with their magazine top 10 and all that stuff before? Kind of like that.
Especially if it's newsprint. Dinah Israel has a thing in the chat on various times here, just talking about getting sponsors, getting ads, things like that. Now, all of these issues are, you know, we've ran down a different trail a little bit.
I think we should get Nike. Nike should be our sponsor.
Absolutely.
Just do it. Just do it.
One thing that I did, I actually told my pastor, he has a particular mission that he does. It's an offshoot off of the church. And I said, hey, you know what you might want to do? Have you ever thought about doing a comic book based upon the history and the mission of this part of your field? And he actually went, hey, you know what? I could do comics. And I said, you know, and how would I do that? Well, you know, hire you some artists and writers. I happen to know some guys loosely, and you would get together and you would get out the history of this. And he said, and then I could go ahead and share them with other churches and other people and get the word out and stuff. I said, exactly. And he says, hey, let's talk about that later on. So here you're going to have these creators obviously beholden to someone else, which they don't want to do. But if it's a young guy and he says, you want me to do what? You want me to draw a bus going across the nation, and you're going to help fund this, and you're going to pay me, and and give me work, I'm willing to do that. So it's just outside of the box thinking, and sometimes erupts into more mines found with gold in them.
Yeah.
And I think
I just want to mention real quick here in the chat. We have Adrian Tepes says is basically talking about the Japanese model and Shonen Jump. I don't know how many of you know what that is, but Shonen Jump is it's a very large book that comes out weekly, and it has many different stories in it. It's not one comic; it's multiple comics. That is an interesting thing, but also as a side thing, there are many other countries that some of these artists might want to try to print in, and there are translators amongst us. So that's another point. But yeah, what do you guys think about this digest idea that Adrian had?
No,
It's neat.
a ComicsGate compilation comic could be really awesome. You know, something with like, you know, Mike Miller's ComicsGate Alliance picture for the cover. That would be fantastic.
As a fan, I would buy it.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, maybe previews of each story.
Or
together for a big comic.
or you know, maybe one shot of every story, kind of like to give them the flavor of that story. And say, you know, coming soon or whatever.
Yeah, Paulus Mobus says like heavy metal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they could give out links to each back as Indiegogo or whatever. It'd be good stuff.
Yeah, we can add at the back of the book all the links of the artists, so you can have contacts and say, hey, this is, you know, this would be pretty cool. It's like you want to talk to the artist, you have an idea, talk, you know, here's the artist, here's the rates, you know, give them that resources to build their own comic book if they wish.
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot of great ideas, and of course, there's so much more we could talk about on the topic, which is great because, like I said, I want to do this every week. So there's a lot of things we can discuss week to week. Well, what I want to do now is, if I may, I want to shift the conversation into our last topic, which is what is ComicsGate doing right? What is it you love about this community? Me personally, I love the great art. We don't know about the storytelling yet, but I feel like there's going to be some fun stories. I love the camaraderie. I love, Denali had mentioned this earlier with the current zeitgeist that's going on in the West with this everyone who doesn't agree with a certain, ideology is evil, Nazis, racists, homophobes, or whatever other ism that they want to throw on top of us. And of course, everyone that has this stress, this dark vibe that you can feel. And the thing is, we know we're not those things. And this is an outlying issue that is, I think, pushed us all together. And in this community, it's specifically comic books, but it's an overall thing. I love the community. I have mentioned it once or twice, and other people have as well. The Alterna stream the other day. Now that was a extremely tragic and unhappy event that took place with them. Mark Waid once again attacking someone. When who is Mark Waid? Why does he think he has the right to do these kind of things? It's just outrageous. And Peter Samedi suffered when he shouldn't have. All he did literally was thank a fan for reading his book. And but that stream was the most wonderful thing. And I just love this community, and there's so many good people, there's so many creative people and kind people, and it's just the things that are being said about this community are disturbing because I don't see it.
Yeah.
And so I really am happy to have found this community. I'm happy to be supporting all these comic books. I'm excited to get them. And I just think it's great. So why don't you guys tell us, what is it you love about ComicsGate?
I reckon you hit it on the nail with that community bit, man. I absolutely adore this community. And we're just nothing what the SJWs claim us to be. By a large percentage, we have our bad eggs. Of course we do. But for a large percentage, our community is fantastic. And I've met more diverse people around here than I have just about anywhere else. Our look, most of our opponents are pasty white dudes. Let's face it. And I've met people of all sorts of colors, races, genders too, or what have you. Being in ComicsGate, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's my rant for next week. Is the other side. I'm going to save it.
Ooh, I like rants.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's what I enjoy. I mean, a lot of things that I see when I'm jumping in different multiple stream is the community. They're saying, hey, you know, I think one of the things that I saw and heard is like, I'm glad that ComicsGate happened, because without ComicsGate, I would have met you guys, and I would have become good friends, you know, with our mutual love of arts and comic books. And, you know, this has been a positive, regardless of what, you know, the other side is saying, this has been a wholly positive experience. And we can only allow the other side as much power as we allow them to have, you know, and I kind of refuse to let them have any powers. So, you know, if you don't have anything positive to contribute, then there's really no conversation to have, because, you know, I'm not here for drama. I'm just here to just have fun, kind of deal.
You know, here's what I experience, and I was gonna very easily be able to say I love the community and everything else you guys said, and then it hit me. I thought of something earlier today, and that was the fact of what this model is different coming from the professionals, and that was a weird sentence that I've got to explain fully. Let me back up and say, you remember when Glenn Beck was on the air with CNN or Fox 8 years ago, and he left to do internet, and they said, dude, no one's on the internet trying to do a series of news things over the web, live streaming will never happen. And I say that with great hilarity inside at the moment, because here we're doing this. And so he did that, and people were shocked that it was even possible. I think that what's happening now is you've got the pros putting the cameras over their artwork, and they're drawing, and this is revolutionary. This is a new marketing concept. It's a new concept of getting close to them. You flip open a comic book and you read at the bottom who the artist is, who the inker is. Okay, I know the name. I know his work on the page. It looks different than the other guy. You know nothing else unless you see them at a convention. And then now you have something entirely different. Now you've got, I know this guy, you know, and you create an emotional bond with Mike Miller. You create that emotional bond with EBS and Mitch and these guys. And if Marvel and DC would have this idea, if they have a studio, I'm not sure if they have a studio or if guys just,
they do, but they're just doing lifestyle choices now.
I know. I'm just gonna say, as far as a model, if they had cameras up in their areas where the guys are working, and they can you know, wave to the cameras and stuff and get people involved once again, you know, these pros have jumped years ahead in the idea of getting people involved in comics by using YouTube the way they've done it, and that's a great boon for them in this industry.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think most of the artists at Marvel, I don't think actually work at Marvel. I think they work from home.
But they can still do the same thing.
It's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But no, it's a very good point. I also love watching the Jim Lee stream when he's doing his art. He's amazing. And it would be great to have some comment on him about just the love of comics, but he can't get into it, and I understand that.
Yep. And Dinah Israel says how EVS wants people to call him Uncle Ethan. You know, that's that community. That's community beyond community. That's that emotional bond I was talking about.
I thought he wanted us to call him the Butter Pie Bandit.
Butter Pie.
I thought it was Uncle Hee Hee.
Yeah.
Caesar. Yeah. Everything else.
Yeah. No, it's it is the absolute community, and I'm seeing that here in the chat. and that it is just this continuous comment on what a great community it is here and how nice and kind everyone is. And the thing that gets me too is there are all kinds of people in this community. We have people from all over the world of all different colors, all different religious backgrounds, all different ages, which has been mentioned in the chat here. And it's very true. And they keep talking about diversity. We have way more diversity over here than they do.
Oh, most definitely. And Adrian Tepp says that we have our inside jokes, even like Mike working at Applebee's.
That's true. Mike
Bennett
is
Hot.
the
Wait,
top.
that's a joke?
of it.
That's a joke, right? Yeah, Denali, that's a good point.
I thought it was the Olive Garden. He's working 2 places. Wow.
He's working 3 places, man. You know how many kids he has?
That's true. Yeah.
So he's a Benihana banana bandana guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, he is Hapa Jop, right?
Yep. And don't mess with Mama Miller because she'll bat you away. That was great. I was like, what would you do? I'll grab a bat and bat him away. Like, yeah, don't mess with Mike Miller mom. She'll bat you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and then there's another point. We actually get to see their families and their and interacting with that. Like Ethan has his son on and does some stuff sometimes, especially when he's going to run over Star Wars toys with his vehicles.
Yeah, and we're supportive. You know, I think that's where the pros they're starting to experience that a little bit more through. I guess the Twitter, the emails, and they're getting more of that. And they keep saying, like the Brightwisers, they had the issue come up with them, and they were so down on everything that is happening, and there was an outpouring, you know. And Elizabeth came out on Twitter and said, "Thank you. I see all the support. We appreciate it." And I think in the long run, you're going to see that community tighten up so much more, and then broaden, and you're gonna experience something in comics that at some point we've said a renaissance.
Yeah, the new golden age of comics is about to begin, and we have to think about it that way. We can't let anybody, even ourselves, think otherwise because we define it. And if we start having doubts of that, then what's the point?
Just wait till one of these comics breaks that $1 million barrier. That will be what changes things. That will be what gets attention. Like we haven't seen anything yet. Right now, the biggest one was EVS. Once somebody breaks that $1 million barrier, which will probably be EVS, I think Rainbow Brute will probably do it. It's going to change real fast. Things are going to start changing.
Yeah, which of course is a very good point, Mr. Thundaro, because the fact is when that does pop. You think we got a lot of new pros coming in now? Wait till that happens. We're going to have a flood of pros coming over here. So we need to get this thing organized now.
Yep.
That organization, that cohesion again. Yep. There has to be a model in place, an outline.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be a chaotic mess.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt everybody, and it's going to hurt the enthusiasm as well.
Yeah.
Because
I could see that being Mitch. I could see Mitch being like some sort of a mastermind CEO. He just seems like that type. And you've got EBS being the guy out front that everybody sees, and he's all talking, and then Mike Miller's running around and taking care of all the small different things and creating energy.
The baby maker. That's what he does. He's a
I feel that Mitch is doing something with EBS in the backgrounds because they had a couple meetings in Arkansas, that they can't talk about.
That's the order of the dawn.
I'm going to speculate that where they did it is a big part of what that meeting was about. Because there's only one thing really in Arkansas that's of that much secrecy, and that would be Walmart. So I have a feeling they met with people at Walmart, and that's why they're not talking about it.
Yeah.
Ah, that's interesting.
Oh, hey, wait a second, guys. I've got some tin foil in the kitchen that I need to go get at.
Think about it. I mean, it makes sense because when EVS, after that meeting, EVS was talking about I got the Cyber Frog Indiegogo campaigns are your movies. Then you have his four. He's going to break up into 4 issues that will go to stores, and then his floppies that will go to the comic book shops. So I wonder if that's the case, that he was talking to a big chain like Walmart and say, "Hey, we want to do this. What do we need to do?"
I'd be careful. I think EVS has brain lasers, guys. He's got ways. He's getting big. You need to, this kind of conversation. It's brain lasers.
Yeah.
I thought I felt some itching in my skull. Maybe he is watching.
Yeah.
I think I saw EVS just pause for a moment. I think he's watching the stream.
I think Mr. Thondaro had a very good point. I didn't even think about that. Walmart, that would be brilliant, though.
Yeah.
And right after that, he had said something. I think it was a tweet. Somebody had said something about keeping them out or something. You know, I've been doing this whole time. And he said something to the effect of, "I'm talking with people right now who can replace you." And he was talking to somebody like Marvel and DC. I don't know of anybody else who could be big enough in the retail market to override them besides somebody like Walmart. So I don't know what. They're being real secretive, which is interesting to me.
Yeah. So it's either Amazon or Walmart, and I'm pretty sure it might be Walmart, like you guys are saying on that. So I wouldn't be surprised come, I think EBS is going to try really hard to prove that this is profitable. So he's going to have to put his A game, and I think that's why everybody's been saying we got to fulfill, we got to produce, because if we do that, then the retailer are going to say, "Hey, we're going to pick it up," regardless of what they say. And if that happens, we have legitimacy.
Right. That's true.
More so, the other side can't even say anything about it.
Wow, if he did that, I would be impressed. I'd be shocked. And if I was made to eat one of the pies that he won't, I won't eat a script.
He's been eating all the pies. He just say, I've been so pie for 17 days, but my birthday I've been eating. No, he's been eating all the pies.
That's shocking. Yeah, I'd eat a pie for that.
Yeah,
I will eat a pie without any manner of encouragement. You just give me a pie, I'll eat it. Especially, I like cookies too. So if anyone wants to send me cookies, I will eat them.
But yeah, so no, guys, don't be surprised, because every time people underestimate EVS and the guys, he always comes up with another surprise, another thing. So,
you mean like $10,000 to what? For whom? Because of what cause?
Right.
Yes, Kyle Ritter. Yeah, that was very cool. No, you talk about the new cover for Cyberpunk. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, the Orchid for mankind.
We have an outpouring of support for various different things. EVS kind of ringlings it up, and he's not so called a leader, but he definitely points to where there's a need or something needs to happen,
and for the as well, right?
And the community makes it happen.
Yeah. Mr. Tondaro, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. One thing about good cause that I see is one of our ComicsGate affiliate comics, The Crying, the anti-child abuse horror story, is lagging behind. And it's a good cause as well, because half of the proceeds goes to protect.org to fight anti-abuse for cases and all that stuff. So it would be really helpful if we were able to get them to fund it. I don't know if you can get EVS attention and have J.S. Earl, which is the writer that worked with Mike on the Meg comic book adaptation. He's trying to do this comic book because the anti-child abuse is a passion project for him. So it would be cool if he can get I don't know if you can get whisper to EVS and say, hey, can you get this guy on and promote it because it's a good cause,
I think Nasser already did, because I talked to Nasser. We DM a lot, and
Yeah.
I think he had already brought it up to him. I just don't think he's had a chance to get him on yet.
Yeah, because the guy only has like about 3 days left of campaign left, so I don't know.
Yeah,
if
well, why don't we take a look at that?
Sure.
I'd like to also see if he's connected to somebody else. So if he's involved in a movement and he has a place where he's going to take money, would that person, would a PR rep also be involved to drum up that outcry that how important this is, like you see like Rachel Coleman and stuff like that.
Can you guys see the can you see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, no, this is the page you're talking about. The cry is J.S. Earls. I saw him on with Mike as well. But this is the one ComicsGate or Comics Alliance, which we need to talk about changing that name. This is the one that's doesn't look like it's going to make it. It's only got 2 days left. It's sitting at $1,190, and but I think it is a good cause. But why do you think it's not doing well?
Well, I didn't hear that last part. What'd you say?
Probably because it probably has anti-child abuse in there for the most part, so they kind of turn away. So if he had just the crying on there, J.S. Earl, the crying, then I think more people would check it out.
Yeah, it's kind of spooky. I'm not sure that I want to directly see. I got children, and so when that's presented directly up front, I'm not sure that's a good way to market that. To say it's horror, on the other hand, and it then uses child abuse as something that you're going to be showcasing against. And then, of course, the proceeds go to help children. That sounds great and amazing.
It does, and it is great art too. I mean, look at some of the art here, but it is a disturbing subject.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's hard for some people.
Yeah, and that's what. But it's like definitely for a good cause. And sometimes we have to show those good causes. We have to show those things as well, because what may not be good for your taste, somebody that might experience it will find strength in that type of comic book.
Yeah,
that actually experience
Oversaturation. I'm gonna throw that out there.
Go ahead.
Oh, the concept of oversaturation.
Yeah.
When I've got the choices of 19, 16 or so out there, then and you've got all these people that are already creating these and their stories, and it's because of the type of story. I can either get into a 1930s noir rocketeer looking story that looks like high excitement, or a horror, and I'm not a horror guy, so I'm leaning towards the other one. But if it was scheduled back another 2 months from now, and then I saw it and I said, look, here's the cry, and maybe it's not necessarily horror, maybe it's something other spooky, maybe it's almost like Spawn, where it's this bad thing that's turned around, then that looks a lot more interesting to me.
Yeah, but here's the a kind of important point on here is the as you see I have on the screen, the for every $2 we raise, $1 will fund the comics production, and $1 will be donated to the project.org. So it is a great thing, but this is not going to make it.
No,
it's not.
What if other ComicsGate guys, Comics Alliance guys, what if they started doing more of this type of a concept? Put there on the back cover or somewhere on the inside or something saying of this comic, and then when they market them, once again, that just flies right in the face of Marvel and DC to say, hey, every time we sell a comic, this and this charity gets money. Where's yours going? Oh, that's right. You've got fat cat guys, CEOs you're patting the pockets of.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
that's-
definitely no. There's no disagreements. The silence hits like the Japanese, where they're like, "Yeah, this is you perfectly
It'd be
encapsulate
great.
our feelings."
Yeah. You're starving
I mean,
people. You know, look at EVS. He could do see Cyber Frog, and he could donate to the Starving Frog Foundation and help them out.
Well,
Yeah.
I think he probably needs to talk to Alex Jones. I'm pretty sure he's in charge of all frog donation endeavors. So,
Oh, that's right. I don't even want to touch that. Wow.
well, no, I'm not going to get into it, but it is the Alex Jones thing is funny because if you can't tell that Alex Jones is a character and that it's an entertainment show, but yet at the back of it, he actually every story is true. If you can't tell that, then I don't understand where your thinking's at. It's entertainment. And the frog thing he was talking about one specific place where the chemicals from factories were actually causing higher numbers of homosexuality amongst frogs. It's real, and
Yeah.
I know, but it's funny. It's still funny that how you saying it out loud.
But he says it like Alex Jones, and it sounds just ridiculous.
It does.
He loses his mind.
Point, right? It's entertainment. He's a character, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a persona. It's it's like it's like Cecil being Cecil. I mean, he is funny, but he's not funny 100% of the time, and I'm pretty sure he'll probably jump on.
Okay, then I'm going to have to interject here and help you out. His name is Cecil, not Cecil.
Cecil.
Cecil. There you go. Yes.
Cecil.
And he is our modern day Rip Taylor, and he's wonderful.
Rip Taylor.
Yeah, Rip Taylor.
How much of Cecil do you guys think is real? How much do you think that's him?
Oh, I think it's his character. I think he's very funny. He's got great comedic timing, and he plays the foil to Ethan. He is the opposite of how he thinks, or maybe he's not. Maybe that's just who he is. But it doesn't matter. He's wonderfully entertaining, and we all love him.
60-70%.
That's what I'd figure too. I'd say that's probably about right for Alex Jones too. I think he believes most of the stuff he says. He just is so over the top with it when he's on air because that's what people want to see. So he just goes over the top with it. Because even his ex-wife said, yeah, he pretty much believes everything he says. And she has no reason to say that if it's not true.
That's all right. You can believe anything you want to believe. I just, but the point is, whether you like him or not, why in the world would you knock him off of every social media? It's outrageous. And of course, what they're going to end up doing is bringing regulation into the situation. Maybe that's what they want. I don't know.
Well, it is. The Google and all the big tech companies want to be regulated because that is a gatekeeping method to keep everybody else out.
And it also makes them a monopoly. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they know that the common people were getting real tired of their crap. And these other companies are starting to actually get it together. You got places like BitChute that's really getting it together. They could actually be a threat to YouTube in a few years, not right now, but eventually. And then you have all these other little social media networks, including ones that aren't even from America, that are better than most of the ones we have over here. They run better. They don't censor pretty much anything. And they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So they're scared. So what they're doing is they're clamping down, one, for political reasons, and two, they want to make sure they can protect their market share. It's happened all throughout history. It happened with phone companies. It happened with electric companies. It's what they do. When they get a bit too big, they go to the government for protection.
That's true. That's probably what's going on, and they just use Alex to do it. Yeah. Let me just take a quick moment here, guys, and I want to go through the chat real quick and see if there's any comments that we should mention here. let's see here. Humphrey is talking in the chat and not talking here. Humphrey, you talk here. Talking about Image Comics, like you guys said, comics is for everyone. Yes, it is, Dina. They have talking about comics getting back. Yeah, well, Adrian, that's something that Alterna is doing. He is trying to get his comics onto newsstands and back into the places where they used to be. I don't understand why they ever went out of them. Let's see.
Because they weren't making enough money that they were doing before, and the retailer were saying these are too priced, and you're giving me all this stuff that we're not selling. These variant covers and all that stuff. Wherein, people just wants to do it, and they were making more money at the comic book shops at that time that they're like, say, okay, then we don't need you. We'll just go to the comic book shop and still get all the variant covers. And that's what they thought. I think, and I remember there was a documentary, and I can't remember which one, which Marvel artist said that that was one of their biggest mistakes, letting go of that market share, because when the bubble popped, it blew. It really was. They thought it was like comics was going to end at that day or that time.
Yeah, Pixel Trader saying the same thing. They're still talking about Alex Jones stuff. Yeah, that seems like we're pretty much caught up. But of course, guys in the chat, any comments you have, just go ahead and say them. If you actually at me, if you just do the at and then put my name in, it'll pop up easy for me to see, and I'll be able to catch it more regularly. It's the first time me doing a live stream like this, and I have some sympathy for the guys now, because I see how difficult it is to pay attention to the chat and to the live stream at the same time.
Yeah, I'm trying to help you out there. I got a different kind of a nugget, I think, that we're talking about here that might help out and kind of put a bow on the end of this, and then we can just go into more stuff and more roundtable. And that is the fact that I noticed a while back that I used to have cassettes when eight tracks went away, and then DVDs came around, or CDs came around, and then DVDs. And I noticed this gap of about 20 years. Technology was different. We had little computery football blip games, and then we had Commodore 64s, and then we had bigger computer systems, and now we've got computers on our desktops, and there's different types of phones. The rotary phone. My grandmother still had one, and then we had touch tone, and then these big old phones that used radio waves, and now we've got smartphones, and once again, they're also computers. And I noticed that some of these things that we have now, the smartphone, that was sci-fi. There's all kinds of different things that I noticed that what was a prototype thing, right? Media storage is now SSDs, and so what was a sci-fi concept we now have every day in everyone's hand. So I thought to myself, my kids are growing up. They don't even go and buy games anymore. They just download, stream it, and get things off of a cloud. What is this? This is phenomenal in a 20-year gap and another 20-year gap. What happens in the next 20-year gap?
I'm still waiting for my flying cars and my robot in every house. So,
Okay, we'll wait for it, because what is the thing going on right now that we have that is the newest sci-fi thing that we think is really cool and wicked, except it's not in everybody's hands?
Pygate.
Drones and artificial intelligence, driving cars, things like this. Those are gee whiz things. Those are going to come around. Mark my words, 2030 will be a new world, just like this is a new world to the old world. But people are still the same. I'm still flesh and blood. I still have to eat. I still have to drink. I still have to sleep. and I still like to pick up things, and I like paper, right? It smells, it's tactile, and I don't care what they say. Kindle did not take off great. Digital books, they're good here and there, but people are still buying books. Books are still around. People like to hold them. And that's what comic books are. And I think that the comic book, as times are changing, we see people's tastes in things. There's a vintage concept that's going around and a nostalgia concept. Comic books are going to be around, I think, in all the digital media and everything that's fast paced, social this, social that. The ability to sit down and have a kid grab a comic book, and an adult to grab a comic book and read it is going to be something that's timeless, that we're ready for that to happen again.
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because what the most being bought right now is actually vintage records. That the highest people have been returning back to vintage records, and they've been buying that more often than the digital downloads and the CDs and all that stuff. So
Humphrey Bear's got a great idea here.
Yes, I wish he would say it in the chat.
Yeah, I was thinking of the holodeck from Star Trek. What if they can make like a 3D comic book that way, that you could see? It's like a comic book and like a movie.
Yep, Firefly.
Yeah.
Well, Firefly had those moving pictures and pages right on the paper.
Well, as long as the females actually have some curves to them, I would like it. What they're producing now, I want nothing to do with. 12-year-old boys are not interesting.
I think we're seeing technology have an impact on comics in the movies. We finally have technology that can take our superheroes and put them up on that big screen in a way that really brings them to life. We do.
Great.
I dreamed of that. As a teenager, I was watching the X-Men cartoon, and I thought, man, if I could only see a big movie like that.
Yeah, man.
And what am I doing? I'm backing Red Rooster and Lone Star.
Yeah, well, it's never going to take away that tactile feel that Chester was talking about. It's never going to take away the desire to have a book in your hands. But we do see the internet is opening up the ability to access comic books.
That's the key right there, sir. Yes.
I live in a small town here in Australia, so I never had a local comic books shop. The nearest comic book shop to me was 2 hours away in the city, and I never went there. So it was very hard for me to get my hands on comic books. So, but now I can just go on Amazon or Comixology or Indiegogos and just grab any book I want. So.
Oh, don't tell me you're out at Coober Pedy or Dingo Whoop Whoop.
I'm near Poo Wong.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. We gotta have a small town off.
My town's getting big.
How many you got?
My town at the moment has about 15,000, and that's.
I win. Yes. Yeah. No, I live in a little place too.
What territory?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in Victoria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did not make it over there.
It's nice down here. But yeah, no, I think having the access to comic books is huge, and having access. We touched on this earlier. Having access to comic book artists is a huge thing that technology has given us. We can talk to the creators of these books and actually get to know them.
Edwin. Yeah, that's a big thing. The ability, the internet, all this media. This is something we don't have. So we do have the comic book, but what they did not have before was the ability to get it out to the individual who wanted it internationally, and that is entirely something different. And once you dip into that, which they already have, they've Indiegogoed it, but it's not a bigger model. And when that happens, every fan will be happy.
Edwin Boyette has joined our chat. Hello, sir. Glad to have you.
Yep. You caught us on the downhill, Edwin. So
yeah, we're just about to wrap up, actually. Yeah.
my big advice is to go back and listen from the beginning tomorrow or later on tonight when it gets posted, and catch up to speed on all the things that we've got going on, because ComicsGate is a great thing. It does need some help. It's got some great things. Did I say great things already? Because if I did, I'll say it again. And some bad things that we as fans want to be sure we get our voices heard and get our ideas out there.
Yeah, that's the whole point of this live stream. And like I said, we're going to be doing it every Friday night, 8 o'clock, and hope to have other fans come on here with us and join as well. And it's it's something where the fans speaking and the guests are fans. Now, we did talk about a little bit having maybe occasionally having a pro on where the fans can speak directly to them face to face, as it were, and ask questions. But the main focus here is on fans and their voices. And I think that is, as Edwin has just said, it is the center of what ComicsGate is.
Yeah, I am ComicsGate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. I am ComicsGate, and all the people that have been harassing ComicsGate. Unfortunately, I'll bring this out to the group, and we haven't touched on this at all because we've stayed away from the SJW concepts and that culture stuff because we wanted to concentrate on us and what we're doing and how we're supporting the pros and what they're doing on their end of it. But as far as the other side of this culture war that's happening, they're out there. So all of us now have to realize that, they may be trying to throw darts and daggers at us, but like you said, we know we've got a good community. You turn a blind eye, you hold up your shield, move forward because you got the moral high ground. And it says, don't do it on I hold the high ground.
That's enough of that. Anybody else? Okay, we are going to be wrapping this up. So anybody have any final comments on anything?
Well, I'm glad that we were able to voice what we had thought about. Hopefully other people found value of what we were saying. I'll go and preach the word of Edwin and say, be the positive things in the world, be the leader, make a difference, and be happy. Kind of deal.
That sounds great. Got anything to say, Beowulf?
Just thanks for having us on and bringing us together. I think this is going to be great for the community, and I look forward to having other people from the community come on and share their opinions, their voice. This is not about a small group of fans. This is something that we want to see spread throughout the community. And I agree. Let's show everyone what ComicsGate really is. We are ComicsGate. We're the fans. We're not white supremacists. We're not a hate group. We love people. We love comics, and we just want to get good comics back into the hands of consumers. So that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. You got anything to say, Humphrey?
Yes, I think it was like a first good chat, and that maybe we can have guest speakers come on and share about comics and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the whole point here. Mr. Thundar, you got any final comment?
I do, actually. I agree with Edwin. I am a comics fan, but I haven't been for a long time. I'm mostly in ComicsGate because I think it's actually the first one of these little movements I've seen that's going to succeed, mainly because the people at the helm of it are incredibly intelligent, they're incredibly passionate, and they want the same things we all want. Also, I think if we can, comics are very important. They're more important than most media in this country, and the reason being is because they're centric to American culture. They have always been a centerpiece of American culture. There are modern day myths, there are modern day Hercules, there are modern day whatever Odysseys, and we cannot let that fall to people who absolutely hate American culture. So I think it's very important what's happening here, and I'm very excited. I have been excited the whole time. And yeah, I'll be hopping in whenever you guys are doing this and whenever I get a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. We're welcome to have you. We did have quite a few wrenches in here today, which of course is fine, but we also want to get just normal fans in as well that don't have to deal with the hateful people coming in and all the nonsense we have to deal with. But you got something to say, Mr. DeWolf?
Most certainly do. I would like to say thank you to you. You gracefully put this channel together. You contacted us. You reached out your arms wide, and you brought us closer in. And you tried to pull in, and I just only believe you're going to be pulling in more the fan base, so that they're going to have the ability to be a lot more responsive in the community, especially with the way that the pros are in their area of this, and then in our area. And so thank you to you, Chester, and congratulations on first great show.
Well, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. I just felt that it was an area that was lacking. And I really want the fans to be able to speak. I think it mainly comes from the fact that I'm on a lot of these streams, as many as you are. And as far as I have to thank Edwin for popping in here. I mean, he's everywhere. He supports everywhere, everybody. And but what I noticed was we're all chatting with each other on the keyboard, which is all well and good. But I want to speak, face to icon, as it were, and hear each other's voice. I mean, like for instance, we have Mr. Thundaro here. I was sure when he come on tonight, he was going to have this incredibly dark, deep, approaching doom voice, but no, not at all.
I can if you want me to. I can.
Please,
I can.
please, that would be much better. Intimidate the chat. This is I'm very happy with this first stream. I think it went really well. We actually get up to over 20 viewers at one point tonight, and I was expecting to have one or two. So it's an incredible success in my opinion. I thank all of you for coming on and everybody that's listening. And the one thing I would say, and I'll reiterate what everyone has already said, this channel is for the fans, and I mean that. And go out and share it. Tell everybody about it. Have everybody come in and listen and chat and interact. And I'll make sure that I have people on who are also in the chat that'll help us keep an eye on the chat and be able to communicate with the chat better than we have done tonight, I think. But I'm getting a feel for how difficult doing the two things at the same time is. But once again, thank you all for coming. And we're going to do this every Friday night. And we might have some other type of lives during the week as well, depending on what some of us communicate and decide to talk about. But as far as FanSpeak, which is what this live chat is, we're going to do it every Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So I'm happy you came on. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. So goodbye.
Aloha and malaho.
Aloha.